Well, hello, welcome back to Tale 3 Cabins. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I've been coming down to this area in southern Ohio now for probably about 25 years, and in the late 90s it was not uncommon to be standing out on this driveway here and get a cell phone signal. Sometimes it was hit or miss, sometimes it was staticky, but it was kind of a nice thing to have if you wanted to contact your family or people wanted to get a hold of you. And I know it's kind of weird that you come down here probably to disconnect from a place and you don't want to be connected to anything. But we have our own purposes why we want to stay connected. And the reason we would get a cell phone signal, if you remember back in the, hang on. Yeah, go for Tale 3 Cabins. Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Yep, I'm going over how we stay connected in a place where you want to be disconnected. Yeah, I'm going to cover that too. Okay, all right. Tale 3 Cabins out. Sorry about that. So back in the late 90s, a cell phone signal, like one of these cell phones, was usually analog. And analog signals, and bear with me, you're going to get a little bit of history on radio frequencies. It's one of the things I used to do on the fire department. One of my AORs, or area of responsibility, was the radio system. So analog signals in the early days of cellular were kind of lower frequencies. And when a lower frequency travels through the air, it creates a larger wave. And when we went to digital a few years into the 2000s, that signal was a higher frequency, and higher frequencies are tighter together. One thing about low frequencies is that they travel far. So that's one of the reasons I could stand out here in this driveway and still get a signal. Once we went to digital on cell phones, and it has its advantages, but distance was one of the disadvantages. We could no longer get a signal here. When you go digital, that gave you other things like data and texting and made your speeds a little bit faster. But analog did have some advantages way back when. So the cell signals switched over to digital and basically became non-existent in this area. You could maybe go on top of the mountain and get a signal. It was very, very slow and very, very sketchy. So then we decided that we were going to get a landline down here. And at the time we got the landline, it was about $25, $30 a month. We only come down here a few months out of the year, and the landline, pretty much if you went a mile that way or a mile that way to call somebody, it was considered long distance. So we used to buy these little cards that had like 90 minutes of long distance time on it, 60 minutes of long distance time, and use these little phone cards all the time. And that was okay to catch up with family and make sure everything's okay at home when you're here for an extended period of time. But it got to be a little monotonous. So now we're getting around 2010, and a friend of mine had this device that he bought. They were using it down in West Virginia for their property. And it basically was a device where it had a little cradle on it, and you'd put your phone in here. Then it had an antenna that you would stick up on top of your car roof. It's magnetic. And then you would plug it in to your cigarette lighter, and it would basically take your cell phone signal, amplify it out this antenna, and also receive signals into this antenna and transfer it back into your phone. So it's known as a cell phone booster, and it was kind of early in technology. I borrowed it and I brought it down here, and I couldn't wait to use it. I was still in the car, just pulled in the driveway, put the antenna on top of the roof, and lo and behold, I got a couple bars. And I brought it into the cabin. I set the antenna out by the window, and I'm kind of hanging on the steps and in the window, and I'm actually sending messages to my wife. I was able to make some phone calls to my wife. It was still a little iffy. Sometimes it was better than other times. It was certainly not being like at home with a very good signal. But it gave me the idea that maybe we could just do away with this phone bill that we have, and I could start using a cell phone booster. They make cell phone boosters for vehicles like this one here, for one room in your house, and then for the whole floor of your house, and some of them have it for businesses. So I'll show you the one we have inside a little bit later. So why do you still want to be connected when you come out here and you want to be disconnected? And you really don't have a TV signal, no cell phone. Sounds like heaven to a lot of people. But as technology advances, and unfortunately we need to keep in touch with folks, One of the major things for us is our cabin in Tennessee. It's a rental cabin. We manage it ourselves, so if we get a booking, we accept the bookings. We do the scheduling. This is Tom from Eaglecrest. I was just thinking maybe we might need salt tomorrow morning the way the weather's looking. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I haven't, beyond today, last night and this morning.
If somebody is staying at it and they have a problem, we want them to be able to contact us immediately so we can take care of it. Maybe it's somebody we got to call out for repair. Maybe it's something simple that we can correct over the phone. So we need to stay connected out here, and unfortunately, that's just the way things are nowadays. So after using this mobile device, I went out and bought one where you can mount an antenna up on the roof and you point in a direction. You try to figure out where the best cell signal is coming in, where the tower might be, or your closest tower. You have to figure out what your carrier is. So you got to look for, like, we have Verizon, so you have to look for Verizon tower. And you want to direct that antenna in that direction of where that signal is coming from. Then you have your inside antenna with the amplifier, and you just need to be near it within a couple feet to make phone calls. And the closer you are to it, the more data you get off of it. It still is not like being at home, but it keeps you connected. It keeps our phone bills down, and it works better than having nothing. So we can send out text, we can get phone calls, we get a little bit of data, we could look up the weather on the internet. We can also check in our deer. Just a few years ago, the state of Ohio went to all electronic check-ins, and there's hardly any check-in stations anymore. So we need internet if we want to check in our deer before we take it to a processor down here. So that's another reason we want to stay connected. But we've gone from, I think there was 1G, 2G, which was like the edge network, very, very slow. It's like when the iPhone first came out. 3G, things got better. And then 4G. And just a few years ago, Verizon stopped supporting 3G signals in our area down here. And all of a sudden, that antenna was no good. Poof, the Verizon signal was gone. We haven't gotten a couple years. Even going on top of the mountain, we are not getting a signal. And it's that same thing. A 4G signal has a little bit higher frequency than the 3G signal, and therefore it's not going to travel as far. So there's no new towers going up here in this rural area. And Verizon is not going to spend a boatload of money on putting a tower up to service 50 people in a little valley here in southern Ohio. So we were back to square one again. We weren't getting signals. We'd have to drive somewhere if we wanted to get a signal. But we were down here not too long after Verizon stopped supporting the 3G signal, and a buddy of mine had an AT&T phone, and his phone was working, and it was working on our booster, which a couple years prior, if you had an AT&T phone, they never worked down here, even with the booster. So now what do? We don't have a good signal with Verizon anymore. We don't have any signal. And I know AT&T works. Our whole family is on Verizon, so it's not like I'm going to move everybody over to AT&T and just have the hassle of switching over. And I'm not going to do it just because we're down here for a couple weeks or a month or so out of the year, and we just want to stay in contact with everyone. So I had a little dilemma trying to figure out what to do. Another thing with AT&T is maybe they'll stop supporting 3G after a while. So if I moved everybody over to AT&T, maybe it's going to stop working next year. You just don't know. So how do I take advantage of AT&T, not get a plan, but still use data and try to still communicate with the life outside of this world of ours? So the next best thing to me, and I did a little research, was to just get a third-party SIM card. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Let's go inside. Sun's going down. I want to unload this wood, and then I'll meet you inside and talk about this SIM card, how it's going to work, and how it's going to help us out.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, how you doing? But back to trying to stay connected. So I did some research, and I did not want to have to pay for a data plan or get another phone or switch the phone over. And you can find SIM cards out there, and what I found it's called the Eiotclub, and basically for as little as $5 they'll send you a SIM card in the mail, and then you can install this on how you want to use it. So basically what I have back here is a Wi-Fi device, and it's very similar to the one that you have at home that might be hooked in through your cable provider providing your data. But this hooks up with a SIM card, and when you sign up with Eiotclub, they send you out a SIM card, and for about $5 it'll have a couple hundred megabytes on there, just so you could test it to see if it's going to work for you, and that way you're not wasting money on plans or anything like that. And then if it is going to work for you, you can decide how much data you're going to need. So for example, we're only down here in September, October, November, and then we're pretty scarce the rest of the year. I just come down to cut grass. So I might only need about 13 gigs a month, 14 gigs a month, just to be able to communicate at home, text, look up stuff on the internet. If I want to start streaming stuff, well then that might get a little crazy and it might have to watch just how much data I need. We have multiple devices down here. Everybody can hook into it like their normal Wi-Fi. Now another thing you can do with this SIM card is you could actually just put it in your phone. For example, the iPhone 12 and 13 and maybe the 11 have the capability of dual SIMs. So right now I have Verizon on this iPhone, but I could pull out the slot, add this SIM card to it, and set up another SIM card that's just data only. When I'm down here, I can go off of that SIM card, and when I go back home, I can go back to my Verizon plan. So that's a nice little option too. So for me, these SIM cards here are on the AT&T network, and it's working pretty good right now. It shows 3 bars on this device that it's getting, and this is my little amplifier antenna for indoors for this room, and then we have that antenna up on the roof. This SIM card helps me out here with this situation that I described to you, and it works out perfect because I got to test it out, see if it's going to work without spending money on a plan. But also if you have other uses, for instance, if you have a hunting trail camera that's got cellular on it and you want those pictures sent to your phone, some of these trail camera manufacturers want to set you up with a service almost like your cell phone service, but you could put this SIM card in there and decide, you know, how much data you think you're going to need for a 6-month period, how many pictures does it take on average, and it could be an economical way of getting one of those trail cameras with the cellular on there to send you data without setting up an elaborate plan. Some other uses for this SIM card is if you have, say, a solar security camera that collects and wants to send you data with no nearby Wi-Fi. They specialize in that. You can do the 4G router like I have back here, and they also have for smartwatches and pet tracker plans. I didn't know that much about pet trackers either, but apparently most of them require a SIM card for them to work. So you can get a pet tracker plan ranging from $18 to $50 that will last up to 2 years. Something to check out. It's an alternative. And then tomorrow I'm going to go on top of our hill where we used to get Verizon but we don't anymore, and I'm going to test this card to see if it works. Because a lot of times when we're hunting up there, I'll be up there for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. That might be too long a period of time when it comes to our rental property if somebody's trying to get a hold of us. So I'm going to test it out tomorrow and see how that goes. So I'm on top of our little mountain here in southern Ohio. This is usually where we all meet with our UTVs or ATVs before we embark on hunting somewhere. This is the rendezvous point. Years ago when we were up here, you would get an intermittent Verizon signal, and now we haven't seen a Verizon signal in probably 3 years up here. So I put the Eiotclub card in my phone, and I am showing 2 bars right now. Now again, this is just data, so I can't make a phone call, but I can send text out, I can receive text, and I can do email, stuff like that. Hello?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I'm
How are you?
okay. I'm on top of our mountain just testing out this little SIM card. So I did a couple speed tests. I did one where I put this cradle on and I got 30 megabytes per second download speed. And now I'm doing it without it and I got 8. Now it's not scientifically accurate exactly. It could just be the way things are bouncing around through the hills here. The signal seems to fluctuate. But it was definitely a little bit better, but it was, even without it, it's still doable up here. So I'm happy that I'm able to get a signal up here because I can still keep in contact with our renters if need be. And sometimes it is a little boring when you're sitting up here for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. Oh, geez. Hang on. Go for tail 3 cabins. Yeah. No, I'm covering. I'm on top of the hill right now. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yeah, I'm almost done. I know this video is a little bit out of the norm. Okay. All right. Tail 3 cabins out. This make me look fat. You may do just fine with your cell phone. You might do good. A lot of people that watch this channel live in rural areas or they go enjoy the outdoors like we do. So this is just a little something I wanted to pass along, how we do things over here, especially in southern Ohio. Things change from time to time. This might not be the perfect solution for everybody, but at least if you have some of the similar issues that we've had, you could give it a try. There's not a lot of expense involved, and if it works, you've got an option, and if it doesn't, well, you're only out $4 or $5. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos, and keep an eye on us. Oh. Are you kidding me? Take care, everybody. Go for Tail 3 Cabins. Yeah, it's over. Yep. It wasn't that bad, was it? I didn't think so. Okay. All right. See ya. Tail 3 Cabins out.